Hey there, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and as you can see, I'm sitting here in a car. I'm getting ready to go into the Firehouse here in Annandale, Virginia, for basically the monthly comic book show that they put on down here. And I'm getting ready to go in. I'm running a little bit late, which is fine with me. Hopefully that there won't be a lot of people here today. There's some big football games today, so I'm hoping that the crowd will be down, but I'm hoping that comic book dealers will be there, set up with some really good books and have some really good deals. I don't know what I'm looking for today other than what's on my 2024 goals list, but we're going to spend a little time here today looking around. I doubt that I will shoot any footage, but if I do, I'll definitely show that right after this. And I will be back and I will show you what books I hopefully will pick up today. So sit back and I will be right back. All right, everybody. So as you can tell, I didn't do any footage from the show there at Annandale. What happened was as soon as I walked in, and gotta remember, I was running 2 hours late. I thought that show would have been pretty well not attended today because I figured that everybody was going to be trying to get out of there, get back home so they can watch the big football games later in the afternoon, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I got there 2 hours late and the place was packed, and it took me a while to go through the show and look at all the walls first before I even started looking into any of the bins. And this show, as I've talked about it before, is half sports cards and half comic book dealers. And I didn't even take a look at the sports cards side. I didn't have time, but I did get to go through all the dealers, take a look at the walls, see if there's anything interesting. And I did find a couple things interesting, but I didn't find a lot of the things off of my 2024 goals list showing up. Just wasn't anything jumping out. So I immediately start going down that to the second level of some of the things I'm looking for. I'm starting to get more interested in some of the 70s Batman books, especially Neil Adams, but I'll be open up to other books. Some of those Jim Apparos are just fantastic from the early 70s. So just as an example of some of the things I started looking for, I'll start opening up the door to looking for more Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck, Dale comic books, things like that. Just let's see what I can find. There's always different levels of interest, that things that I'm interested in. Well, I did find a couple other things on some of the walls, and what happened at the end was I never really get into the dollar boxes. And when I say dollar boxes, it's not all dollars. Sometimes it's 50-cent boxes. Sometimes it's dollar boxes. And I've got one dealer there that I'm really good friends with. His name's Jimmy from Battlefield Comics. And he always sets up at this show, and he has a lot of boxes, and he has a variety of things. You've got, as I just said, you've got 50-cent boxes, you've got dollar boxes, and then you've got boxes, basically the books are as priced, and he always gives good discounts on those. And in the end, after I'd picked up a couple of pretty decent books, I ended up going through his books. And I don't normally, especially when I'm traveling, I don't usually do that. And I've talked about not trying to fill runs or anything like that. I'm just trying to concentrate on certain keys. Well, I ended up going through his boxes and I found a bunch of stuff that was pretty interesting, and I started pulling stuff out. So that was what I ended up with at the very end of the show. So we're going to go in reverse order. We're going to start with that. These are the books that I picked up from Jimmy from Battlefield Comics. So let's go through it. And it just so happened I started at the very end of his table. He actually had several tables. It forms a big giant square, and happened onto an X-Men box. And I just started thumbing through, and to be honest, I've got every one of these comics, but these are really good covers. You've got some really nice, on some of these, you got some beautiful Andy Kubert artwork, and you've got some hot covers with Psylocke on them and Jean Grey, and I'm going, okay, these are pretty good books, especially these first ones were in the dollar bins. So let me just run through real quick, and I'll show you what I picked up. We've got, this is X-Men number 29. You've got that beautiful Psylocke cover right there. X-Men 28, you've got that Sabretooth Jean Grey cover. Then you've got X-Men 31. You got Psylocke and her, I cannot remember the two names basically you got Betsy Braddock on one side and you got Psylocke on the other. I cannot remember her Japanese name, so forgive me for that. I should look it up when I do this, but pick that up. And then you've got a beautiful another Psylocke cover right there. What is that? That's issue number 32 for $1 a piece. And these are all in really nice condition. And that's something you're going to find as I'm going through these, and I'll talk a little bit more about, is I'm picking up some of these books like this, but I still go with condition. I'm not just putting books into filler run. I'm still buying high grade books all the time. And for $1, these are all really good. This was X-Men Gold. I know I never had that, but that cover actually struck me right there. It's a beautiful image with Kitty Pryde right there. What is this? I'm not sure who the artist is on that, but that was just these were basically cover buys. And that's really, really a beautiful cover right there. And then how can you pass up Greg Land on Phoenix in Song, this issue number 1, that cover. I've gotten this before, but that is such a beautiful image of the Phoenix right there. And those were in the dollar bins. And so I moved around Jimmy's boxes and I got over to some of the higher priced books. And when I say high, we're not talking super expensive, but we're not talking dollar bins or 50-cent bins. So I just started going through and going, you know what? There's some books in here of interest. Let's pick them up. I actually do like to read comics, guys. I think that's something we forget about in all these YouTube channels. We talk about the art and the price for CGC, these books, and how much they're worth and things like that. But do we actually enjoy comics? I love comics. I love reading comics. And even I get away from it every now and then. And so I'm going through this and I'm going, well, I haven't read this. These are less expensive. Actually, the next two are still dollar books. So I went ahead and picked these up too. I never had this. This is Squadron Sinister number 1. And yeah, I never say this. Now, I do remember the original Squadron Sinister 12-issue maxi series back in the 80s. I loved that series. I wasn't too much of a fan of the art, but I loved the story. But I've always loved these characters. I mean, these characters, it's funny. These characters right here remind me of a lot of what the JSA characters are in the DC universe. It's like you can do so much with these characters because they're not necessarily mainstream. And in that way, you don't see them a lot, so maybe they're more interesting. So I picked that up. I picked up an issue number 1 of Alpha, number 1 Alpha of Annihilation Scourge. I might have had this. This whole Annihilation storyline, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't reading. I never read any of this. It's one of those things I probably should try to find a trade paperback the next time one of my LCSs has a sale. I'd like to know more about this. Honestly, when the new Guardians of the Galaxy came out, I just went with it. I didn't have a history with a lot of those characters with that Guardians. I grew up with the Guardians from the early 70s that were, of course, the ones from the late 60s. And I remember those as my Guardians of the Galaxy. It wasn't this new set of Guardians. So I know that they've used a lot of the characters from that in this time period for Annihilation and everything. So I think I'm going to start picking up, either I'll find a trade paperback or I will go back and I will try to pick up some of these back issues along the way. Well, those were in all the dollar boxes. So then I got into, like I said, the higher priced books, and Jimmy had a bunch of stuff there. He had some runs of books, and I realized me focusing on the Invaders, trying to complete that run, has starting to rub off a little bit on some other series, and I felt that itch at this show. And he had a run of Micronauts that I had as a kid, but I didn't have them up too high, and I kind of resisted, mostly because I knew better at the point. It's like, I'm not going to get into this right now, but I did pick up the second issue of Micronauts. Now, I never had issues 1 and 2, but I had basically issues 3 through about 15 of Micronauts. And this was actually a really nice, I want to say, high-grade book. And that's the one thing, as I said, I'm going to talk about is when I picked these up, there were a lot more. He had a lot more other issues, especially the first 10 books, but they had ticks. They weren't as good as I would have liked. And I said, if you're going to do this, make sure you get the best copies you can. And this was a really good copy. Jimmy, the next time when you get a chance and you pull the rest of your Micronauts, because you said you had more, definitely I will take a look at them, because I may work on that run, because I know you've got a lot of them that'll be real easy to pick up. So issue number 2, that's going to be good. I'm going to enjoy reading this, actually. And then I did the same thing, and it's the mirror image of the Invaders. Is you've got the All-Star Squadron, and he had several issues. Nothing, it's sort of in the high numbers here. This is issue number 56, and I probably had these. I know I had a lot of the All-Star Squadrons at the very beginning, and then I started having a lot late in the 50s, but I went ahead and picked up this issue 56 and number 49. Now, he had a few more there too, but they were all, again, a little bit lesser condition. So I just picked up these 2 right here. And as I said, it's sort of like going down that road of the Invaders. These are runs that I didn't necessarily think I would start to pick up, but all of a sudden I'm standing there and they're not that expensive. And I figured, okay, let's go ahead and get a couple of these. I mean, especially because these are always good reads. These All-Star Squadrons are still being written by Roy Thomas, even into the 50s here. I think I don't know how long the run, how this ran, how many issues it was, but I'm pretty sure Roy Thomas probably wrote every one of them. So, it'll be pretty good. So, and then the last thing I ended up picking up from his boxes, and I cannot resist this. I talked about this in another episode. Probably my top 5 all-time Batman storylines. And this is a 5-issue storyline that I picked up. I've got this series. I talked about it in one of the other episodes where I've got it signed by the artist, but I need the writer. And let me show it to you again. It is the Batman Legends of the Dark Knight. And this is actually number 13. It's all 5 issues of the storyline Prey. And when this book first came out, this is a storyline that talked about, it explored Batman early in his career. It wasn't necessarily year 1, but it was early in his career. And they would do these 5-issue storylines. And this was the 3rd storyline, which was Prey by Doug Moench and Paul Gulacy. And years ago, Paul Gulacy came to the Baltimore Comic-Con, and I got him to sign all 5 issues of this. And let me go through them real quick. You've got 13. These are out of order, by the way. This is let's see. This is number 12. This is number 14. This is the first one, number 11. It's a really striking cover. And then you've got number 15 there, the last one. And I love this series. I own a piece of original artwork from this series that I also have had Paul Gulacy sign as well. It's got the character that you see partially in the cover here, the Night Scourge. And great storyline. It involves the first meeting with Hugo Strange and how he figured out who Batman was and how Batman convinces him that he's wrong. And it drives him nuts. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant right here. And I'm going to tell the director of the new Batman's movies, is it Matt Reeves, I believe? I'm telling you, whatever plans you have for the next film, scrap it. Get rid of it. I don't care what you're going to do. Call Doug Moench. Take this story right here and adapt it for film. It's ready to go. Paul, get Doug Moench to come in as a consultant, and this is your story. It is set up so good. This is probably one of them, as I said, one of my top 5 all-time Batman storylines. It's up there with Batman Year One, Dark Knight Returns. I mean, it is right up there with that, and the art is absolutely fantastic. And so I ended up, this is probably the second set of these I've picked up in the last 2 to 3 months. And one of the things I'm probably going to do, because I have already got a set of these signed, is I probably will have a set of these set up. These are actually really nice and high grade. I will probably put these together as a set that I'll probably have on my eBay store that people can pick up as a set. So that's why I keep picking it up, because it's not like I'm going to make a lot of money out of this, but it's one of those things. I feel the urge to share this with everybody. Guys, pick this up. I'm sure they've got this in a trade paperback. Go to your LCS, pick this up. One of the best storylines of all time. But that's what I got from Jimmy from Battlefield Comics. And that was the small stuff that I picked up. Now, so the rest of the show, as I said, I went around at the very beginning. I was looking at the walls, and here are my thoughts before I show you the books I actually picked up. The thing that struck me is the thing that we keep talking about when you go to these shows like this, is you still have dealers out there that are pricing their books, especially Rawls, astronomically. And that's what thing struck me today was there are certain keys that I don't necessarily have to pick up because I have already been picking them up over the last year, 2 years, really. And I'm talking about books like Tales of the Teen Titans, number 44, the first Dick Grayson as Nightwing, the number 2 issue of New Teen Titans with the first appearance of Deathstroke, Spider-Man 252, for example. I mean, that's one I haven't picked up raw, but I know what the prices are in some of these like this. And I know you're looking at high grades on that, and I know what to kind of look for in the price range. And what I'm finding at certain dealers, multiple dealers, is that they are pricing these things like they are already graded 9.6s, 9.8s. Well, maybe not 9.8s, but they're pricing it anywhere from probably $100 to $200 higher than what they should even be selling for. I mean, some cases I think they're selling it higher than what the graded book would be. And I'm looking at that, and I'm noticing some other books being graded exorbitantly high just the same way. And I've gotten to the point now that when I go to a little show like this, or even a big show, and I see books like this, I don't even bother going through the rest of your books in your bins, because now you're telling me that you've overpriced everything that you have. And maybe I'm doing that to save time, but I just, honestly, guys, there's dealers out there, you are pricing your books way too high. I mean, books are coming down. Prices are coming down right now, and you guys are actually going in the opposite direction. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to go to any of your boxes. I'll look at the wall. The wall's telling me what the temperature of the room is, and I'm not even going into your boxes. I didn't bother with any of them today. So there was at least 2 to 3 dealers that I did that with, that I just shut them down immediately and went on to other dealers that had things that were much more reasonably priced. And it's going to be kind of sad, because eventually you may run out of dealers. I don't know. But that includes the one dealer that I've already stopped even looking at his booth anymore. He's always had good books, but he doesn't price any of his books. He literally will price everything as you pull them out. And I'm like, I'm not going to spend my time. I'm not wasting my time going through your boxes if you don't price your books to begin with anyway. Maybe it kind of works both ways. If you price them too high, I'm not shopping with you. If you don't price your books at all, I'm not shopping with you either. So already there's at least 3 dealers now that show up at Annandale that I'm not even going to be wasting my time with you anymore. And I don't know. Am I going on a rant? I am a little bit. But honestly, there were other dealers that had much better deals, and the books were just as good. All right, so I ended up going to one of the other dealers that I know real well, and he always has great books. And if you go through his bins, you'll find a lot of keys in there that can range from anywhere from the 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up. And you'll have ratios in there, and it'll be a lot of good stuff. And his wall, though, will always have a lot of basically like virgin covers, brand new books, some ratios that are really good. Always has a lot of good stuff. It's a lot of newer stuff, but there will be some older stuff that's in there. And that's what I found. I ended up going through everything, and I found a copy of this. This is that issue number 47 of All-Star Squadron. This is the Todd McFarlane doing the artwork right here. And I don't know. I don't remember if this is significant because it's just Todd McFarlane or if this was the first time he did that. To be honest with you, I don't know. But I know that this always pops up every now and then as a pretty nice book. And I know I never had this. I talked about our All-Star Squadron already, and I had already dropped it by this point. I don't know why. I was enjoying the book, but I guess I just fell off of it. And I didn't pick it up until the late 40s, issues in the 40s. So I never had this issue. So I picked up a copy of that. I thought that was in really nice shape. And if you look at the price sticker there, he has little dots on there. And that is a little system that he has to talk about the condition. It kind of tells him that the book has a little bit of issues here and there. May not tell you exactly where, but it tells him when he's selling the book, he can tell the buyer that the book is got some issues, and he can basically point it out, and that helps him know what the book's like when he's selling it. Anyway, that's what I picked up from this particular dealer. But the very first book that I picked up at the show today was one of the first books that jumped out at me on the stands. And this was from a dealer that shows up all the time here in Maryland and DC, in the Baltimore area, in the DC area. I don't know his name, but he always has a ton of boxes. And it ranges all over the place. But I've never bought from him before, mostly because I feel like the condition of the bags. Well, first thing, let's start with the books themselves. You go into the boxes and it is random. There's no organization other than you might have a small run of books in a box, but immediately after that, it's going to be something else, and it won't be alphabetical. It's all over the place. You could spend all afternoon going through these boxes. And then the second thing is, it's not fresh bagged and boarded comics. They're old, they're yellowed, aged, and it's a little hard to see the condition through the books. But he always has a really interesting wall, and that's one of the things I said at the beginning is when I come through the show the first time, the first lap around the room, I'm looking at the walls. And he had this setting on the top shelf, and I immediately asked to look at it because this is a book that, even though it's not technically on my 2024 goals list, it kind of is on that hidden list that I haven't written down, but I know I want to get this. And after circling the room a couple times, going through the boxes just a little bit more, I decided, you know what? I'm going to go back and get that because I know he was offering basically some decent prices off of whatever the list was on the books and things like that. And I'm not getting into prices today for the most part. It's not what I want to do on the show here. I just want to talk about, picking up books that I think still were good value. I'm telling you, it's a good value. And I think the conditions on these things are fantastic. But let me show you what I picked up. This is actually the very first book I picked up today. And I finally got a copy of Super Friends #1 in really nice shape. And when I say the bags at his stand are yellowed, it's not everything. This is in a nice Mylar right here. I don't think it fits the comic as well as it should, but it actually being wider, you can see it's much wider than the book. It actually probably saved one of his books because he had this on the top shelf and he gets up on the ladder, on the chair to get up there and reach it down, and he knocks one down on one of his other books. And I'm cringing. And the one thing I'll say is that his books on the wall had these same wide areas. And so if it hit that corner, it probably survived. That's all I'm going to say on that. But boy, that scared the crap out of me when he dropped one of the other books. But it turned out it was okay. But these are still fairly new and everything. But for the most part, the regular bag comics, it's just has a little bit of a dirty feeling to it. And it's funny though, you start going through what he has in there, and it's not just dollar books. You'll find a $5 book, and the next thing you know, it'll be a $100 Fantastic Four book. And I'm like, wow, this is surprising. There's some really good gems in here. And I'm going, man, if he would actually rebag and board fresh Mylar on a lot of those expensive books and focus on that. I mean, still have the other stuff. I mean, you could still have your miscellaneous boxes and everything, but start pulling those gems out and setting them in an area where it would be easy for someone who's interested in higher grade, expensive Silver Age books, for example. I mean, I'd be interested in that. And especially in days like this when I'm traveling after the show, I don't want to spend a lot of time digging through everything. And I ended up digging through more of his boxes than I expected. But which was surprising considering I did that twice today in two dealers today, is because of the travel I was going to have to do afterwards. But yeah, I think he could do a much better job with presentation, but I know it's a lot of work. So who am I to say anything? Obviously, I'm not out there selling comics myself at a comic book show. I know it's a lot of work, even keeping your collection together, much less getting ready for a show and then putting the money into the bags and boards to really do it upright. So just saying, I think it might help, but what do I know? Anyway, those are my thoughts on the show today in Annandale, Virginia at the little firehouse there. This is a show, again, that happens about once every month. It happened twice in January, and then we're going to come back, I think, at the end of February. We're going to have another show, and I'll probably go back down there as well because there was definitely a couple of dealers that I always look forward to seeing in Annandale that were definitely not there. That's the Eclectic Nerd. They were not there. So they always have great books, but maybe the next time we'll see them back in at this show as well. But that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you enjoyed it, definitely hit that like button, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so when I put out these episodes, you guys will be alerted. I do put out shows every Monday and Friday at 10 a.m., but with the click on the notification, you obviously will be alerted to when the show is getting ready to air. And if you're ever interested in anything on the channel, definitely reach out to me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com or DM me on my Instagram account. You can see what I currently have for sale right now on my eBay store or on my Shortbox page by clicking the links in the description below. And that's it, guys. I will see you for the next episode. I'm thankful that you guys would join me today. I appreciate it. And I will see you for the next show. Just remember, every comic has a story.